The Harryman Show.
Hey, welcome to the Harryman Show number 28. I have an excellent drummer on the show today named Jason Hartless. He's currently playing with Ted Nugent, gives master classes as well, playing in many countless national acts. How you doing, Jason?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. How you doing today out there?
I'm doing fantastic. Just enjoying this beautiful Michigan day and just getting some work done because I'm starting to build my home studio this week.
Oh, nice. What kind of software are you using?
Pro Tools,
nice.
So but we've got a contractor building out, the basement of my house, and that way I can do a lot more remote sessions from home.
Oh, cool. We'll touch base on it a little bit. I want to talk about your lessons, but just to pull it back, I know you've been playing since the age of 6. What got you into drums originally?
Well, actually, I started playing professionally when I was about 5 years old. But my dad was a drummer, so the drums were always in the house. And by the time I was about 6 months old, is when I started banging on the kit. And then, before by the time I could walk and crawl, I would crawl up on his drum set, start playing. And then around the age of 3 or 4, my dad started inviting some of his musician buddies over and to jam with me and stuff. And then when I was 5, I started doing cover gigs around Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Nice. You got like an early introduction there.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I was born into a musical family, so it was always around, and it definitely helped in the future with a lot of my connections that were built off of my dad's that he had in his career. Now,
was your dad giving you lessons himself, or did you take him formally somewhere else?
Well, he taught me the basic stuff, and then for the most part, I was self-taught until about the time I was 13 or 14. I started taking lessons with a legendary instructor here in Detroit by the name of George Dunn.
Oh, nice.
He was an old school jazz guy, and we focused a lot into the marching band type rudiments and things like that. But that was the only time I actually did formal one-on-one weekly lessons. But through the years, Corky Langford Mountain was my mentor. I also took lessons from Tommy Clufettos, who's Ozzy and Black Sabbath's drummer now, but at the time, oddly enough, he was drumming for Ted Nugent.
Oh, really?
So over the years, I've had various, drummers, kind of mentor me in one way or another. But it wasn't until in my early teens that I actually started taking lessons.
Oh, nice. And then was your dad also a pro and player too as well?
Oh yeah. It's kind of funny because there's old footage when I was probably 2 or 3 years old playing on my dad's kit, and there's this giant Pearl banner behind me. Yeah. and Pearl has used that in a couple of their promotional things that they've done with me over the years. So it's kind of hilarious how it was definitely meant to be.
Oh, nice. And just to kind of touch back on, was your dad just a drummer full time, or was that just one of the things he did?
Yeah, before I was born, he was touring in a band that had some pretty good success in the Midwest and on the East Coast. And then in the early 90s, he became very close with Ace Frehley and his whole camp.
Oh, nice.
And so he was doing a lot of touring with those guys, opening up. And, so a lot of my connections started from, the whole Ace Frehley Kiss camp. Because, Richie Scarlett, who was Ace's guitar player for many years, when I was born, my dad made him my godfather. So, it was definitely, I was born right into the mix of everything.
Yeah, and just to give you a compliment, when I watch your YouTube videos, your live performance, you have a solid, retro rock sound to you. It looks like you've definitely done your homework with your tom fills and your snare rolls and rim shots. It definitely shines on your older rock stuff when you play.
Well, I appreciate it. I tend to try to be a chameleon and be a guy that can do whatever the gig calls for. Mm-hmm. Even though that I'm kind of branded as a rock drummer only because of, the gigs that I've had. I'm really a jazz drummer. Yeah. So, a lot of those stylistical approaches, whatever gig you got to do what the gig calls for. Mm-hmm. With Ted Nugent, for instance, even though it's technically rock drums, Cliff Davies, the original drummer that played on all the hits, mm-hmm. he was a jazz drummer.
Oh, okay.
So I try to approach it more along the lines of how Cliff did it. And, Ted wanted more of a Mitch Mitchell meets Buddy Rich meets John Bonham meets Stuart Copeland type drummer.
Oh, nice.
And it's like, okay, well, I can take all these and put the little sprinkles here and there, and whatever needs to for that song.
Nice. And I noticed you play traditional. Is that something you kind of keep up regularly, or do you just kind of go back and forth with it as well?
Yeah, back and forth. Again, it just depends on the gig. I've even had it actually comes in handy, because if we're doing a stretch of playing 7 nights in a row, by the 6th and 7th night, especially with the Nugent gig, where it's 2.5 hours of just you hit the crap out of the drums. By the 6th or 7th show within that long stretch, my left hand starts getting a little fatigued. So being able to switch to traditional seamlessly is a great thing to kind of combat that issue. But even when I'm playing jazz, it gives that a little bit more of a finesse, stylistic approach. And again, like I said, it depends on the gig.
Yeah, and one thing I want to give a shout out before we move on, you did a video for Vader for Stuart Copeland you mentioned earlier. That was an excellent cover you did of that song. It was dead on.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, Stuart's one of my all-time favorites, and when Vader approached me, we were doing everything was locked down, and like, hey, we're doing this video series of Vader artists paying tribute to other Vader artists. Who do you want to do? And I was instantly like, Stuart Copeland.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really. I actually watched it in a rotation quite a few. I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, going on to it, I know you said you had connections with the Ted Nugent camp. How did that gig come about, and how did it get started for you?
Well, I was touring with a band called Pistol Day Parade, and this was 2012 to 2015. I was with them, and we had a lot of big, powerful management and financial backing behind us. And the record that we released in 2013 was getting exponential reviews, and it was being compared to like Fleetwood Mac Rumors in the fact that every song was going to be a single.
Oh, nice.
And we when we were about to release our big single called Rockstar's Girlfriend, management and the label was like, all right, well, we need to get a nice national tour for you guys to open. And the tour that we ended up getting was opening for Ted Nugent in 2014.
Oh, nice. And
during that tour, Rockstar's Girlfriend climbed the charts, super fast. And at the end of that tour, it was number 19 on the active rock charts. And our radio pro said, he said, well, you guys need to book another tour almost immediately. And because of that song will be number one. Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, the two guitar players and singer decided that they hated touring.
Oh, man.
So the single stalled at number 19 when it was projected to be number one. And, I laugh because it's almost verbatim the movie That Thing You Do, the kind of the whole storyline of that band.
I love that movie.
But after that tour, I was doing a lot of studio work here in Detroit, and the next summer I sent a few emails out to, various friends in the industry, one being Ted's manager, and the other one being Eric Singer from KISS, who's a very dear friend of mine, and I've known since I was 7 years old.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, well, let me put you in contact with Doc McGee. And Doc McGee and Doug Banker co-managed Ted, even though Doug is the key manager there. So they both kind of at the same time, were like, we might have something for you. Mm-hmm. So Ted called me, like a couple days later, and we talked for like an hour and a half about, what he wanted in a drummer, my influences, Detroit music, all that sort of thing. And
was it Ted himself that called you?
Oh yeah. So, and a couple days later, I flew down to Waco, Texas. Mm-hmm. Ted, myself, and Greg Smith, the bass players, we sat in a little sweaty rehearsal room, and we played a couple tunes, and Ted was like, "That's it."
Nice. And that could have been, that must have kind of just been, was it like surreal at the time, or you kind of just knew it was coming?
Well, every gig that I approach, I'm very comfortable in what it is, because, if you come into a gig very tense and nervous and whatever, it's going to show off in your playing.
Oh, yeah.
And plus, it helped being that I was around the Nugent camp when I was, doing that tour. Mm-hmm. It helped tremendously that I already knew Greg, and, various people in the on the touring camp. So it was a very seamless transition for everybody.
And I know, just an odd question, but I know Ted Nugent's a very physical, sober person. Is that something he instills in his band, or kind of stays firm on?
Oh yeah, 100%. Ted is one of the I couldn't ask for a better boss.
Yeah.
And he treats my family like his family, and he's taking me hunting next month, and it's really fantastic. And again, I can't ask for a better boss. And during this whole pandemic thing, even though we're not on the road, I talk to him probably every 2 or 3 days.
And he just seems like he's a no nonsense guy, and he just kind of gets to the point, doesn't waste time with anything.
Oh, 100%. He knows exactly what he wants, and that's why he's had a career for 50 plus years and continuing to be at the top of his game.
Nice. I think going into that gig, did you guys hit the road right away, or how did that go about?
Yeah, I think it was somewhere in like March that I flew down to Texas, and then we were to start a tour in June, and we had a one-off date in New Hampshire or something. Then we had a week off, and then we started a 3-month tour. Mm-hmm. But again, it was because of I knew how the Nugent camp had run, from the previous tour. It was such a seamless transition for everybody involved.
Oh, nice. And does he play with the click as well, or was it just super kind of like Mitch Mitchell-y?
Absolutely not. he counts off every single song.
Oh, okay.
I think I only start one song. So depending on how he's feeling that day, he might be in a super excited mood, and we'll play a song super fast, and maybe the next night he's a little more relaxed, and we'll play a song super slow. It's super old school.
Yeah,
I think we're one of the last groups out there that are not using clicks, and it definitely shows, because every single night is different, from improvisation to even song choices. He'll call out songs on stage that we might not have played in 2 years and expect us to play it. Like, all right, we're doing this song. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I kind of wish more bands would do that, but I understand the organization of having a click, and when you have flights and back, I understand all that, but yeah, I kind of really appreciate the old school kind of mentality with that.
Well, I think a great example, of another band that does it old school is Cheap Trick, and I'm dear friends with Dax Nielsen and all those guys, and they change their set up almost 80% every single night. Nice. Whatever show you see Cheap Trick, you'll never see the exact same show, because songs are completely different.
Nice. Yeah, Bunny's got one of the best it's got one of the best drum collections we've ever seen too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's got the Ludwig collection. I've got the Pearl collection.
Yeah. We'll get into that a little bit here, but I kind of want to talk about did you start going to Berkeley in your teens or your 20s?
Well, so basically, I graduated high school in 2013, and that's when I was touring with the Pistol Lay Parade band. So I took about 2 years off before I went into started my degree. And after those 2 years, I had a decision. It was like, okay, well, do I move to Boston for 4 years, or do I take the online route? And I'm a music business major, so
oh, nice.
The pros and cons were kind of like, okay, well, I'd be quitting my career for 4 years, and really with online, it's all bookwork anyways, because it's music business. Uh-huh. So it made so much sense, and luckily I chose that route, because a month or two after I started my degree, I got the call for the Nugent gig.
That worked out pretty well then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and then when did you graduate from Berkeley?
This past May, which it was, kind of sucked because of everything that's going on. I had to watch my commencement on YouTube in my living room.
Oh, no.
But and it's kind of hilarious. Literally 5 minutes before my name was called, I got the call from Nugent Management telling me the tour was moved to 2021.
Good and bad news.
Yeah, well, it is what it is, of course, and we adapt and overcome. But and 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started my master's at Berkeley as well. So just continuing to
nice.
Build my resume and my education, and
well,
broadening my spectrum.
Well, congratulations on what you've done so far. I think you're definitely on the right path with everything.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Was there any memorable teachers at Berkeley that you remember, or students that were staying out that you see up and coming?
Yeah, the thing is, I have it's always different professors. I've stayed in contact with a lot of them, and I'm friends with them, and I've even done business dealings with some of them.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm a managing partner in a music conglomerate here in Detroit. So, I kind of utilized my education on top of my actual business work. So it's been absolutely phenomenal. But I studied on campus when I was still in high school, actually, and I got to work with some phenomenal drummers such as Kim Plainfield, who's now passed away, legendary drum educator, and a few other cats. But it's I take the mentality that I try to learn as much as I can from everybody. Mm-hmm. Because you never know what someone might say, and then you can utilize that into whatever you're doing.
Nice. And then are there drummers that you kind of are newer drummers that you kind of look up to in your rotation on YouTube and drum videos?
Be honest with you, I there's a couple like Dak Nielsen from T Trick is probably my favorite drummer that's under the age of 40, and just absolutely phenomenal. But I'm such an old school guy. Mm-hmm. My favorite drummers, are guys from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, mainly studio drummers.
Nice.
So it's like I tend to gravitate towards that because I know as a drummer, those guys got hired to play on thousands of records for a reason.
Yeah.
And because they are that chameleon style of playing. So me being able to take that approach and try to morph it into whatever I can do is, definitely the biggest thing. And me as a young guy, I'm only 25.
Yeah.
But, I have grown up with that understanding of that studio musicians are the pinnacle of the pinnacle. So and some of them are not with us. Jeff Porcaro from Toto's is probably if I was to pinpoint who was the one drummer that you would want to model your career after, and that'd be Jeff. And it's like, Jeff died in 1992. I was born in 1994. So to me, he was never alive when I was alive. So I find that it's kind of my duty as a younger guy, looking up to him and studying his work to help continue his legacy. Yeah. And it goes for a lot of different drummers, like with the Nick Tucker, the drummer of the Sweet, who was my first influence on drums. Uh-huh. Same thing, keeping on this legacy of these drummers that might not have been a household name, but can, I can help live on their legacy as long as possible.
Yeah, and I wanted to give a shout out to that video you did of the Toto Rosanna Shuffle. You nailed that one, to be honest with you.
Oh, thank you. I've been studying that groove for years.
Yeah, a lot of guys kind of half-assed it, but you nailed it like precisely.
Well, there's so many small little details within that groove that get overlooked. And again, I've studied it for freaking years, and I'm still not 100% there. But just finding those little details and those imperfections actually within a song really affects the groove.
Yeah.
So learning those imperfections that they might have done, it's not all about making it perfection. It's about how does this sound good and how does this feel good.
Nice. Yeah. And it shows in your practicing, but I also want to talk about your lessons and your master classes. When did you start doing those as well?
Well, I'm not a huge teacher. I teach at a school rock in Detroit when I'm off the road, but it's definitely not one of my biggest fortes, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I do master classes and clinics, around the United States at various music shops and schools and things like that. And my message is always geared more towards the younger kids, either my age, a little bit older than me, or younger. Mm-hmm. Just saying, okay, well, this is what I've done. This is how I did it. This is how you stay, with a level head. This is how you stay clean and sober. This is how you have a more analytical approach to what you do on the drums. Mm-hmm. It's about finding the love for the drums. And then once you find the love for the drums, it's about, okay, well, how can I become better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole process to the madness. But as your travels, was there any music stores or venues that stood out to you that you like to go back to in rotation?
Well, I mean, the two venues that I just absolutely love playing every single time is, number one, the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, the original Grand Ole Opry. And every time we play there, it's just magic to me. You know, the hundreds of iconic country artists that have played on that stage, you know, and just such a historical venue. I just absolutely love it. And then, of course, you know, every time Nugent plays in my hometown of Detroit, you know, we either play at the famous CTE Pine Knob Amphitheater or Freedom Hill Amphitheater, which is literally, if I look out my window, I can see it from my house.
Oh, nice.
So,
just walk home.
You know, yeah, exactly. So, you know, doing those, you know, large amphitheaters here in Detroit is always a treat for me. And we actually even shot a DVD at Freedom Hill a couple years ago that was included with the last Nugent record. So, you know, definitely a cool full circle moment for me.
And then any drum shops that you like visiting while you're touring?
Yeah, I mean, the Portsmouth drum shop in New Hampshire is just absolutely amazing.
Uh-huh.
You know, we always we play on the Hampton Beach Casino, which is only a couple miles from there. So every time we're there, me and my drum tech, we always get an Uber out there and check that place out.
Oh, nice. Which leads me into my next segment. I like to collect my drums myself, but you're a Pearl drummer, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. What was your first Pearl set you got besides your dad's?
For Christmas in 2000, I got a Pearl export kit.
Oh, nice.
And I used that kit for years until I became a Pearl artist in 2005. And it was kind of cool. It had been 2014 or 15. Pearl was doing a YouTube ad campaign called My First Drum Set. And it was myself, Todd Zuckerman, Ray Lutzier, and Nate Morton were the drummers. Were the drummers that were doing it. And it was cool because I went into the studio with my actual first drum set. Mm-hmm. And so I got to, you know, use that in the video and stuff like that. But, you know, since then it's been downhill in terms of my collection in a great way. my vintage Pearl drum collection is kind of a little scary. And actually, as we speak, I'm in the process of moving all of that stuff around so that my basement can get built out.
Oh, nice. And I wanted to talk, before you go on, I wanted to bring up that fiberglass kit you were playing. Did you see a significant difference in going to a fiberglass shell with the Pearl drums?
Are you talking about the one that I used with Nugent?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that was another project that I was very lucky to be involved with Pearl. Mm-hmm. You know, back in the 70s, Pearl had the fiberglass kits that, you know, Peter Criss was most famous for using. Mm-hmm. But in 2015, Pearl reconfigured and kind of reissued those kits in a more modern way.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky. They asked me to be the artist to kind of be the face of that product. Yeah. And I was totally on board because I'm very, very big vintage Pearl guy. So got to do all the product demonstrations for that. And then they built me a custom kit for my first two tours with Nugent. And it's one of my favorite drum sets, you know, and I still use it. I still use it today. Actually, because because every two tours with Ted, I try to change up drum sets. And so that kit had kind of been just sitting in my house, and I'd use it occasionally just, you know, at home. But I'm actually been touring a lot recently with the 90s band Sponge. So I've kind of brought that kit back out and using it with them now.
And that's in a white marine pearl, right?
Yeah, it's actually it's one of the only wrapped versions of that kit because the retail, they only sold lacquer finishes.
Oh, okay.
So, but I did an A/B between the two, and I prefer the wrap.
And then I noticed you're a hard hitter. Do you feel more attack on those fiberglass shells, or do you feel it's just more natural for it?
More natural. I mean, the toms have everything that I look for in toms. You know, they've got the attack, but they've got the warmth. The overtones are phenomenal. You know, a great kind of funny story. And I'm not going to name the drumhead company, but when I first joined Nugent, you know, I've used Remo forever. Uh-huh. But when I first joined Nugent, I did not have a deal at that point for drumheads. Uh-huh. And they were pressuring me to get a deal with a head company so they didn't have to, you know, they can get heads at a discounted rate because we change heads almost every show.
Oh, wow.
And my tech and I were contacted by a head company pretty big head company, and they sent us out enough to do half the tour. And we put these heads on the kit, and my tech had such an issue with them. And the drums sounded good, but they didn't sound great.
Yeah.
And once we ran out of those heads, we called Tour Supply. They sent us a ton of Remo black dots, and we put them on that kit, and he didn't have to do a dang thing. They sounded perfect.
Yeah, those toms have like a 70s slap sound to them. I can't explain it. I'm probably using the wrong word, but I play a Leather Classic maple myself, and it's real ideally the same. I use black dots, and there's this distinct sound those black dots give those toms.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny when people see me using black dots, and they're like, "Why are you using black dots? That's so old school." It's like, yeah, that's the reason, because they sound phenomenal.
Yeah, you can't mess with those. I mean, yeah, those and just coated heads are the way to go for myself.
100%.
And then I wanted to talk about your cymbals. Were you using Sabian from day one, or is that something that kind of came along as well?
Yeah, I've used Sabian literally my whole life, but when I first started doing a lot of active touring, I was 13. I was 13 years old. I was touring with a band called Shram, who guitar player was an ex-guitar player of Uncle Cracker. So we were doing a lot of touring, and we actually opened up for Motley Crue on the Crue Fest 2 tour in 2009.
Nice.
And but at that point, I was at the state in my career where I've always been a big proponent of only using the gear that you like and love. Never has it been about free gear or what can you do for me type thing.
Yeah.
And but at that time, the Canadian company called Dream Cymbals came along, and they were absolutely phenomenal to me. And I used their stuff for almost 10 years. Nice. Just really great. They were great stuff, and they were had me on their box, and really great people over there. And then when I joined Nugent, it was kind of time to make the switch back to Sabian.
Nice.
Because that was always my home, and I've used it basically my whole life. So when I came back to the Sabian family, it was like I never left.
Nice. And are you using mainly like the AA lines or the Evolution stuff?
I'm all over the place, but I've been almost exclusively been using the brand new AAX Thin line of crash cymbals and ride cymbals.
Oh, nice.
Because they for studio, because during all this stuff, I'm in the studio constantly. So I one day I can be playing a super heavy metal track, and the next minute I could be doing a jazz track. These cymbals I've literally have not changed out because they work for everything.
Nice.
And that's exactly what I wanted, in a cymbal. I looked for a long time for that, going through a bunch of the Sabian stuff. And last year they retooled the AAX line, reconfigured them all, and they had me go down to Sweetwater to do the basically the presentation of the cymbals, and for all the sales reps at Sweetwater. And I sat down at the kit and hit them. I was like, yep, this is it.
Nice. And then when you play live with Ted, do you tend to lean towards a heavier ride or a thinner ride?
Yeah, well, with my crashes with Ted, I use the AAX Explosion crashes, and the ride that I use with Ted, I do not use with anything else because it is the loudest freaking ride of all time.
What is it? 22, 24?
It's a 22 Neil Peart Paragon ride.
Nice, perfect.
And that thing is so loud, you look at it and it goes pink.
I have one myself. They're great. Those are excellent line of cymbals, and especially when they went into the Brilliant finishes too. They're pretty nice.
Yeah, and that's what I have is the Brilliant, and it's Brilliant. I only use Brilliant cymbals when I'm on tour with Nugent because my drum tech will clean them. Yeah. But other than that, I actually prefer matted finished cymbals because you just get a little bit more of a warmer tone to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jason, I don't want to keep you too long here, but before we let you go, what's the best place to reach out to you for session work and kind of just network with you?
Well, the best thing is I'm probably the most reachable person in the world because I'm on every social media. I'm pretty very easily accessible. So, I luckily, again, during all this COVID stuff, I've been extremely busy with studio work, and now that things are starting to open up, I've been touring with, the 90s band Sponge. So,
nice.
Been staying busy, but I can be even more busier.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, once again, I want to thank you, and please check out Jason's YouTube channel. There's a lot of great stuff. Just a lot of precise drumming, especially in the retro rock drumming. And if you enjoyed the show, please check us out on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And once again, thank you, Jason.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, brother.
All right, thank you. Let me tell you guys about the stuff called Groove Juice. The stuff is amazing. I've been using it since honestly I can remember. It's kept my drums and cymbals looking pristine for shows or just simply practicing at home. Most drummers and some of the great drum techs around the world use this stuff and proudly endorse it. Please reach out to your local retailer or order online with Groove Juice.